भारत की भूमि पर एक दिव्य पुरुष ने जन्म लिया। भारत की भूमि पर एक दिव्य पुरुष ने जन्म लिया। नवयुग का निर्माण कराने, नवयुग का निर्माण कराने शिव ने जिनमें स्थान लिया। भारत की भूमि पर एक दिव्य पुरुष ने जन्म लिया। भारत की भूमि पर जन जन की सेवा में तन मन धन का किया समर्पण। एकता की माला में पिरो के किया विश्व परिवर्तन। अमृत वाणी बरसा के, सबका जीवन सुखदायी किया। भारत की भूमि पर एक दिव्य पुरुष ने जन्म लिया। भारत की भूमि पर आत्मज्ञान करा के सबको मान शान अभिमान छुड़ाया। पहले आप ये मंत्र पढ़ा कर सबको आगे बढ़ाया। नष्टो मोहा स्मृतिर्लब्धा नष्टो मोहा स्मृतिर्लब्धा बन। गीता ज्ञान साकार किया। भारत की भूमि पर एक दिव्य पुरुष ने जन्म लिया। भारत की भूमि पर
Shanti. So for the past 2-3 days, you have been staying in this campus, and some of you have been to Mount Abu and have also seen our different complexes in Mount Abu. You've also seen this Shanti-Van, and you have heard a number of lectures on Raj Yoga. So by now you must have come to know where you have come. This place where you have come is not an ordinary place. It's not a place where people come to sing, bhajans, or just do some puja, or worship a guru, all those sort of things. But this is a very big spiritual organization. We may call it to be a spiritual world university, where we learn spiritual knowledge of how to inculcate divine values in our lives, and also whatever we have learned or experienced, to share that with others as well. So all of you must be wondering from where we have got all this knowledge. We are not reading any scriptures or reciting any hymns, poetry or songs or all that, but speaking direct spiritual knowledge. So who is our guru? And what is the source of all this? Some of you, when you see the picture of the founder of this organization, Pitashri Prajapita Brahma, you may think, well, we consider him to be our guru, or maybe we call him God, but it's not so. He is not God. God is only one incorporeal being, Shiva, the Supreme Father, the Father of all souls. But then Pitashri Brahma Baba is not even our guru. We don't consider him to be our guru. And there is no descendants like one guru dies, another guru takes his seat. It's not like that also. This seat where I'm sitting is not meant to be for a guru. You saw Dadi Hirday Mohini, our senior Dadi. She came and sat on a sofa, on a chair. So she didn't even sit on this. So this is not some guru's seat. But this is just a little raised platform so that the one who's speaking can watch everyone, and you also can look at that one easily. But we do call Pitashri Brahma Baba our Divine Father, the Alokik Father. We all of us have Father, the one who has given birth to the body. But then we also have the Supreme Father, Shiva, or we say Shiv Baba. But then Pitashri Brahma Baba is our Divine Father, an Alokik Father, through whom Shiv Baba has given us a new spiritual birth. Although we have the Lokik, the physical body, but we have taken a new spiritual birth from Shiv Baba through the medium of Pitashri Prajapita Brahma, the name which was given to him by the Supreme Father himself. So he is our Divine Father, our Alokik Father. So we say with pride that we have three fathers. People know only of one father, they'll say so and so is my father. But then we say that we have three fathers: the bodily father, the soul father or the spiritual father, which is God, and also Pitashri Brahma Baba, the Divine Father, through whom God has given us a new life, a new birth. So today I'm going to tell you his story, because his story will be the story of this organization too, from the beginning till the end. Actually, Pitashri Brahma Baba, whose original bodily name was Lekh Raj, he was a very big businessman, rather you can say a jewel merchant who dealt with jewels and gold and diamonds. And he had a very flourishing business. He had a very big shop in Calcutta, and his customers were no ordinary people. They were the Britishers who used to come during the British period from through Calcutta to India. Calcutta was like a doorway for them, a gateway, when they would come by ship. And they would come to his shop to buy jewelry, to buy diamonds. And also at that time there were kings ruling in India. This was in the 1930s. At that time he had a flourishing business, and his customers were those kings of India. Every district had its own king, had actually a king. Well, each district was like a kingly state, especially in Rajasthan, Gujarat, everywhere, even in South India. So, actually, he was born in a very, very simple family. He wasn't born in a very rich family. He was born in a simple family in Hyderabad, Sindh, which is now part of Pakistan. Sindh province, Sindh state. Hyderabad, a very small town, and in a village of that small town, his father was a petty school teacher, maybe a primary school teacher. So his father was not very rich. He lived in the village in his childhood, but he hardly had any interest in education, in studies of that worldly schools. But from the beginning, he had a very good discrimination power. He could, discriminate people very easily. He could understand them very quickly. And how from that petty schoolmaster teacher, his son, he raised and became a very big jeweler, a jewel merchant rather. So we can say that his life went through many phases. So he was actually not just a big flourishing businessman, quite a prosperous one, but he was also a very big philanthropist. He used to give away a lot of money in charity, to charitable organizations, to social organizations, and therefore he had a very high name in the society. Along with that, he was also a very strong devotee of Vishnu. He used to worship Vishnu, and he had been to all the pilgrimage places in India. Of course, he used to go to every temple, even the temples of Shiva, but then his personal deity was Vishnu. He had also been to Amarnath caves. So he used to do a lot of traveling, go to pilgrimage places, and he used to go to his customers, because his customers were kings ruling in different states in India. because their wives would not be traveling, so he used to go to them and get order for the jewelry. They used to wear diamonds and gold and all that, which was very cheap compared to what it is today. So we can say on one hand a very flourishing business, but on the other hand a very great devotee, going on pilgrimages, worshipping a lot, praising the gods and goddesses, and a very big philanthropist. And so we can see that his life was a very successful life. He had a very good family, his wife and 5 children, 3 daughters, 2 sons, whom he had got them married. So when he was nearing nearly 60 years of age, after all that flourishing business and a big shop with so much name and fame and praise in the society, he used to gradually, have many questions. He wanted to know a lot about this creation of God. He had read many scriptures, and he had also made many gurus, He used to ask those gurus, who is God? Who am I? Why did God create this world? Why is there so much sorrow in this world? What is going to happen in the future? If this is God's world, then this should be a very, very happy and peaceful world. But today we are seeing so much sorrow everywhere. Can such a world be created by God? Then why the need to live in this world? What is moksha? What is mukti? How can we get liberated from the sorrows? Why are there so many vices, lust, anger, greed, attachment, ego? Why isn't there love amongst the people? All these questions he used to ask his gurus. But whatever answer he got from them did not satisfy him, because he was very intelligent too. So he kept on asking questions, but did not get very satisfying answers. So in this way, he went to many gurus. He read many scriptures just to get the answers to his spiritual questions. He's also tell those gurus or ask them, why is my mind not under my control? Why is it wandering? What should I do for that? In spite of doing so much bhakti, I'm not able to control my senses. So he kept on asking questions, and therefore the result was he kept on, wanting to know more and more and more. So gradually what happened, a big dislike for the world came in him. He just wanted to renounce the whole world and sit in silence and, in the remembrance of his personal God, his deity, Vishnu. He did not want to do that big business anymore. He sort of got some disinterest for the whole world. So he used to tell his wife and children that I really want to give up everything and just sit in bhakti, sit in silence and, just leave the world. But then his family members were totally against it. How could he live like that? He has such a big business, such a flourishing, business, such a big name in the society. How could he just leave and everything and do bhakti and sit in silence? So the questions kept on increasing, but he did not get the answers. So he said, anyway, I want these answers. So I want to go into silence for some time at least. Maybe God will give me some inspirations and I will be able to get answers to my questions. So one day Now how that day brought such a big change in his life. A very wonderful experience he got on that day. And through that experience, the change which came in his life became instrumental for changing the lives of so many of us. He sowed one seed, and that seed which he sowed in the year 1936, that was 72 years ago, when he was nearly 60 years of age, that seed has turned into such a big tree today, with this organization having 8,000 branches in over 130 countries, where sisters and brothers like us who are dedicated are in thousands. And in hundreds of thousands, lakhs, there are brothers and sisters like you who live in their families and lead a lotus-like life. So what inspired him to actually bring such a change in his life, although he was experiencing some disinterest, but then it was such a drastic transformation through that one experience. So one day he was actually sitting at home, and he had invited his guru to his home, who used to give or read the scriptures. So that day he was reading the Gita. Actually, Baba himself used to read the Gita every day. He used to read the Gita at home in the morning after taking his bath, and invite all his family members, his children and everybody, even the neighbors and the relatives. They used to come to his house in the morning, and he used to recite the Gita, and he used to explain on the Gita, because he was a spiritual person anyway. So one morning he was sitting in a satsang, his guru had come to his home, and that guru was delivering a sermon on the Gita. And as he was listening and listening, all of a sudden his eyes shut, and he experienced a wonderful trance experience. And in that vision which he got, he saw Vishnu standing in front of him and blessing him. Aham Chaturabhuj Tattvam. I am the four-armed Vishnu, and so are you. So Vishnu appeared. And then he saw the different forms of Vishnu, Jagannath, Srinath, Balaji, Tirupati Balaji. So all are different forms of Vishnu. They all came one after the other in front of him, and each one of them blessed him. Aham Chaturabhuj Tattvam. You are also Vishnu, like me. And they disappeared. One by one they came, blessed him, and disappeared. So the Guru satsang finished, and everybody else got up, but Baba was sitting there with eyes closed. His Guru was wondering what he must have experienced. His family members were also wondering what did he experience, because he was sitting there in total silence with eyes closed for such a long time, even after the satsang had finished. And on his face there was such a wonderful intoxication, such a wonderful smile, such a happy feeling. So everybody was curious to know what he was experiencing. And therefore they all waited there till he opened his eyes. And when he opened his eyes, he saw his Guru in front of him. And he just got up and went and, bowed in front of him, touched his feet and began to say, Guru, it is because of your grace that I got such a wonderful vision of my deity, Vishnu. But I don't know why Vishnu blessed me as you are the same as me. I'm not Vishnu. I'm only a devotee of Vishnu. How can I be Vishnu? I'm a worldly man. I'm a family man. I'm a businessman. How can I be Vishnu? So when his guru heard the experience of him, he also started wondering what that blessing meant. You are the same as me, Tattatvam. So are you, Vishnu. But then his guru said, maybe God wants to get something done through you, because you are a great person anyway. You have such good sanskar, such a strong devotee, you are so honest in your dealings. You have so many good qualities. Because whoever would come in contact of Baba would also say the same. Even the big kings at that time, they would say to Baba that God made a very big mistake. They should have made you the king, because he had so much royalty in him. His way of talking, way of behaving, everything was so royal, much better than a royal king. So they used to tell him that God made a mistake. He should have made you the king, but he made us the king. But Baba used to say, no, God can never make mistakes. There must be some secret behind it. So now when he got this vision, the question came in his mind, what does that vision mean? And his guru told him that probably God wants to get something done through you. So what does God want to get done through me? I need an answer. And therefore, his guru only advised him that just go into silence for a few days. Maybe God will inspire you more. So in order to go into silence or into seclusion and be away from the worldly affairs, he took permission from his family members to go to Banaras from Hyderabad, Sindh, where he lived, because he had a friend there who was also a businessman like him, and he was always inviting him. So he took leave and went to his friend in Banaras to sit in solitude for some days near the Ganges, Ganga river. So when he went to Banaras, every evening he used to meditate upon his deity Vishnu. And in the mornings he used to go to the Ganges and meditate there. In the evenings in the garden of his friend, he used to sit in silence under a tree and meditate. So it was after a few days of his silence in Banaras that he got very strange visions. He saw vision of destruction of this world. Well, he got it in in different phases. But the visions which he saw of destruction was, on one hand, he saw a nuclear war taking place. He saw aeroplanes, flying in the sky, and from each aeroplane something fell on the ground, on the earth. And as it fell on the earth, it turned into a mushroom of fire. And in this way he saw fire everywhere. And gradually he saw that everything had burned down. Everything was destroyed in fire. Actually, that was a nuclear war which he saw in visions. At that time he didn't understand, because nobody knew what a bomb was. This was in the year 1936. So, on one hand he saw a nuclear war happening, atomic war happening. Then after some time he saw civil war happening. He saw how people were shooting at each other and blood was flowing and there was bloodshed, rivers of blood everywhere. People were crying and shouting and screaming and running here and there. And he could see how people were killing one another. And then after some time he saw everyone dead. All dead bodies around like a big cremation ground. The whole world had become all dead bodies everywhere and blood everywhere. So he started wondering, why am I seeing this? Is this world going to get destroyed in this way? Then God, why have you created such a world if this world is going to get destroyed in this way? And why are you showing me this? What have I to do in it? But actually, why he saw that vision? Because God wanted to have complete disinterest for the world. God was showing him the future. And then after some time, he got another vision. And this was a vision of natural calamities. Destruction happening through all the 5 elements. Earth in the form of earthquake, water in the form of floods, fire, earth, water, fire, air, so much cyclone, hurricanes, all that, such strong winds, and sky, there was lightning and thundering, and so all the 5 elements were creating havoc. And gradually he saw that everything was destroyed. So question again rose, what am I to do if this world is going to get destroyed? He started crying. He couldn't bear to see such destruction. There was so much sorrow everywhere. And then after that, he got a very, very wonderful vision. In that he saw the vision of the soul world. A world of infinite golden red light. Just like we have the sky, so this was something beyond the sky, the 6th element of infinite golden red light, the Brahma element. And in that Brahma element he saw small, small souls, like stars we see in the sky. So he saw that. And then after that he saw those stars from that soul world started descending, and they came down and down and down and reached the earth. And as they reached the earth, each star, the soul, turned into a very beautiful deity. And as the stars turned into deities in human form, deities, he noticed that the whole world which had been destroyed gradually turned back into a beautiful world once again. There were rivers and gardens and palaces, and the deities were dancing and singing, and there was so much joy and happiness around that immediately he felt that great joy within. And he wondered, does it mean that this world will change into this world? But then after that he heard a voice. The voice told him, wake up, wake up. You have to create this world. Because after the end of Iron Age, a golden age is going to come. And you have to establish that golden age. And therefore, wake up, wake up. So Baba heard this sound. Wake up, wake up. Wake up means what? I'm already awake. In what way have I to wake up? What do I have to do for that? Because if I have to establish this golden age, how am I going to do it? I don't know anything. So he started praying to God, oh God, tell me, what have I to do for this? If I have to establish such a beautiful world, how can I do it? And what have I to do if I am to do it? Please advise me, please tell me, please show me the way, please guide me. So in this way, he started praying to God again and again. And after that, he felt that, well, I just cannot keep on sitting here for long because God wants me to do something. So first of all, let me go to Calcutta and finish up my business. His partner lived in Calcutta and he was looking after the shop. And Baba used to actually go to his customers all over India. So from Banaras, he decided to go to Calcutta to tell his partner that now he wants to give up his business, to wind up everything, so that he could do that business which God wanted him to do. Because whenever he used to see jewels or diamonds, he used to feel that they are like stones. Because there was so much disinterest in his life. He did not, there was no attraction towards money, no attraction towards anything of this physical world. And then when God gave him a task to do, he wanted to do that task, So he went to his partner and told his partner everything, what his experience was and what God wanted him to do. Of course, his partner was very reluctant. He didn't want him to give up his business, but Baba was quite adamant. He said, no, God wants me to do something different. So he took his share of the business, which was much more than, of course, his partner's share, and gave his shop to the partner, and whatever share his was, he took that and went back to Hyderabad, Sindh. Now when he went home, everyone in the family was so surprised because he became totally changed. Before, when he used to go to meet the kings and the Britishers, he used to wear coat and pant, and he had such a good personality, more than 6 feet tall and fair complexion. So even that physical personality was great in him. And now when he came back, he changed his dress completely. He used to wear just white clothes, kurta, dhoti, as people wear. And that's all. Nothing. And he was totally transformed. And he used to sit more and more in silence, because he was now getting more and more experiences from God. But he was really not aware of the truth, because the question was still in his mind. Who am I? Who is God? What am I to do? Where are you? Tell me more, and what am I supposed to do? He used to keep speaking to God. So one day when he was sitting in his room, alone, all by himself, his family members noticed that there was some light in the room. There was no sunshine coming in the room. It was evening time, but from where was this light coming? The sun had nearly setting, but there was light and light all around him. The whole room was like lit up. And his face was also lit up, like light on his face. No light was coming on his face from anywhere, but his face was so lit up. And then, when his family members went close to him, they heard some voice coming from his lips. It was a very deep voice coming like from the skies. Not his voice, but a deep voice coming from somewhere far away. And what the words were, Nijananda Swarupam Shivoham Shivoham. I am the embodiment of bliss. I am Shiva. I am the embodiment of knowledge. I am Shiva. I am the embodiment of peace. I am Shiva. I am the embodiment of love. I am Shiva. I am the embodiment of light. I am Shiva. So these words kept on being uttered from his lips, and his eyes were shut, and there was a wonderful glow on his face, serenity on his face, peace on his face. And then after that, when he opened his eyes were so red, red, very powerful eyes. And then he looked around, his family members asked him, Baba, what did you experience? What were you looking at? What were you saying? And Baba looked around and said, there was some light, very powerful light. But it was so cool. It was very strong but very cool. And that light and might came so close to me, and I felt as if it just entered through me, entered inside me. It went inside me. And now that light and might wants me to do something. I feel so much power within me. I don't know what I am to do, but that light and might wants me to do something. Actually, he got a vision of Shiva, Jyoti Swarup Shiva. And Shiv Baba, the Supreme Being, entered in his body and spoke through his mouth, giving his introduction through the mouth of Baba. But Baba did not know, as he was in that intoxicated state. His family members heard, I am Shiva, I am the embodiment of light, of love, of peace, of bliss and all that. So one hand he got the vision of Vishnu. Actually, Vishnu was his personal god, he used to worship him. But why he got the vision of Vishnu before? Because God wanted to make him realize that this is your future. You can become Vishnu. Nar can become Narayana, and Nari can become Lakshmi. A human being can become a deity. Therefore Vishnu blessed him. Aham Chaturabhuj Tattvam. You are also the same as me. But now he got the vision of Shiva, the Jyoti form. And that Jyoti was so powerful light, but still so cooling. And he felt how that light entered in him, and that light spoke, which his family members heard. And then after that vision, some miracles happened. What happened was that whoever would look in his eyes, or whoever would just come in front of him and he would look at that person, everyone who came in front of him began to get visions. They would see him first in an ordinary form, and then gradually they would experience as if the ordinary form disappeared and that form was a form of Vishnu in front of them, or Sri Krishna, Sri Narayana standing in front of them. The ordinary form disappeared. And when in the gathering he used to chant Om, the moment he would chant Om, everyone in the gathering would go into trance. And with their eyes closed, they used to see Krishna. And they would, like dance with Krishna. They would get visions of heaven, of golden age and Krishna, Sri Krishna. And they are like dancing with them. So everyone in the gathering would become intoxicated. Now this became a big news, not only in Hyderabad, Sindh, but it went all over. It went also to the newspapers of the world. The news came even in the Times magazine in 1936, 72 years ago, that there is a person called Dada Lekh Raj in Hyderabad, Sindh, who has some, who has some miracles, who's able to do miracles. Whomever he looks at gets a vision of Krishna, or they see him as Vishnu. And he chants Om and everybody goes into trance. So this became big news. And people from far and wide used to come to him just to get that experience of Krishna. It became such a big news. Everyone came to know. And after that, the miracles increased, that people who did not even know about this, they got visions of Krishna at home. They would see a vision of Krishna in a garden, Sri Krishna, and they wanted to go and meet him, but immediately Krishna would disappear and Baba would appear in white. They wouldn't know Baba, but they would be surprised, where did Krishna disappear? And Krishna would be visible somewhere in a distance, and he would give them the signal, if you want to meet me, go to him. This experience Dadi Prakashmani got. She was only 15 years old in the year 1936, and she was going to school in the 10th class, and she also was a very strong devotee of Krishna. She used to read the Gita, and very, very pure, pious soul. Her father was an astrologer, also by profession. He used to see the horoscopes and also prepare horoscopes. And when he prepared the horoscope of his daughter, he felt that this soul is a very, very different soul. She is going to become like Mirabai, dedicated to God. She'll surrender her life to God, like Mira did it. So, she had so much love for Krishna. And now when, in the morning she had a vision of Krishna, but Krishna told her, if you want to meet me, go to him. But she didn't know this Baba. She was not related to him, but her father knew it. And he had the news that in Hyderabad, Sindh, there is this Dada Lekhraj who has this wonderful miracle, magic. But Baba used to say, it's not me, I'm not doing anything, I don't have any power. It's God working, I don't know anything. So, then later on, in the morning after she got this vision, she went to school. And her friend told her that, why don't you come to that satsang, that spiritual gathering, where whoever looks at Baba gets a vision of Krishna. You come with me, we will go tomorrow. So she was a little hesitant. She said, I don't know anybody. How can I go like that? I will ask my father. And when she asked her father told her, yes, daughter, you are also, you love Sri Krishna very much. You should go there and see for yourself, experience for yourself. So the next day, she took her friend and went to Baba, and the satsang was going on, and Baba was chanting Om. And as she also started chanting Om, immediately she went into trance. And she got a vision of Krishna, and she was like dancing with Krishna. So after that, so many like her came to Baba, and they all like dedicated their lives to Baba. It was something wonderful, a miracle. And usually what happened was Kumaris, young girls, they came more, like Dadi was 15 years old. Then the other picture you see of Jagatamba Saraswati, we call her Mama. She was about 16 years at that time. She was also going to school. She lost her father and her brother. She lost them both. That means her mother lost her husband and a son. So anybody who had, sorrow in life, they would come to Baba and experience peace. So people told her, go to Dada Lekhraj, and there you will get peace, because she was crying and crying and crying. She lost her husband and son. And Mama, her name was Radhika. She was very beautiful by complexion. And not only that, she had many, many good qualities. She was a very good singer. She used to play the harmonium, sitar, used to play all the musical instruments. She was a very good dancer and very well known in Hyderabad, Sindh, because she used to always win prizes in school. Because she was intelligent, she was beautiful, she was having many qualities. So she brought her mother to Baba, because the mother was crying, and in those days, ladies, women, they did not have any place in the society. The husbands used to travel abroad, they had business all over the world, all Sindhi people, But the ladies used to sit in those four walls looking after the children. And if someone's husband died, it was a great tragedy because the wife was considered to be like a curse in the family. And she would be crying and crying and crying whole day, wearing black clothes and, covering her head, her face and crying whole day. Not eating, very terrible state of women at that time because it was a man-dominated, society. So the women had no privileges at all. They were not even allowed to come out of the house, but they would just look after the family, cook, and that's all. And the husbands used to enjoy, traveling all over the world and maybe keeping different women in those countries also, you never know. And the poor ladies, the women, the wives sitting at home having nothing to do. So now Shiv Baba started giving the strength through Brahma Baba to the mothers. Because Shiv Baba told Baba that now bring the mothers, the women in the front. When these women rise spiritually, then the world will become heaven. So when Mama came with her mother to Baba, Mama told Baba, Baba, I lost my father and my brother and my mother is crying and crying the whole day. So that time Baba looked at her and asked her, who is experiencing sorrow? She said, I am experiencing sorrow. Who are you? She said, I am so and so. Her name she said. But then Baba told her, no, you are not so and so. You are a soul. You are a peaceful soul. Peace is within you. You consider yourself to be peaceful. Say Om Shanti. And the moment she said Om Shanti, Shanti, immediately she went into trance, her mother. And she saw Baba as Krishna and she was dancing, enjoying in that intoxicated stage. So everyone was so surprised that now she was crying and crying and now she's in that intoxicated stage. So this was such a wonderful experience for everyone. Now when Baba saw her, Baba told her, because she had a very good voice, she used to sing also. She used to create music too. Any words would be given to her, she would create music and sing those words in the form of a song. That was her speciality. So Baba had written some songs, some hymns, some bhajans. So Baba told her, okay, this is a bhajan, these are the words, you create music and you sing. So when she sang, everyone in the gathering started singing and enjoying and also getting visions. When she would say Om, immediately the whole gathering would go into trance. It was a great miracle. And here Shiv Baba had told Baba that now put the sisters in the front. So Mama, her name was Radha and everyone called her Om Radhe because she used to chant Om. And people saw visions in her. They saw her as Radhe, as Lakshmi. In Baba they saw Krishna or Sri Narayana or Vishnu, and in her they saw Radhe or Lakshmi. Actually they were not related to each other. Baba was 60 years old and she was just 16 years old. Such a big difference. But then the moment they came to Baba and her mother got the vision, she did not get any vision. She was very intelligent, very intellectual. But her mother got, so she was happy that her mother had become peaceful. And she obeyed Baba and started singing, started playing the sitar, the harmonium, and chanting Om. And then so many people would get visions. So in this way, both mother and daughter surrendered. So in this way, about 400 sisters and brothers and mothers, they surrendered to Baba. Because they used to get so many visions. And when they surrendered, it became a big thing in Hyderabad, Sindh. Because then Baba told them that now make a promise that you are going to lead a pure life. a celibate life. Be holy, be yogi. So they made pledges in front of Shiva, Shiv Baba, that we will lead a holy and yogi life. Dadi Hirday Mohini, whom you met yesterday, she also came with her mother, and she was only 9 years old at that time. And the first thing she experienced when she came to Baba was, she went into trance and saw Krishna. And Dadi Hirday Mohini, her name was actually Shobha. That was her name. She was such an innocent, shy girl who would hardly speak to anybody, would always sit in one corner, totally aloof from the whole world. She was in the 3rd or 4th standard. She was only 9 years old, 9 or 8 years old. So you can 3rd or 4th standard, so must be 9 years old. And when she got that vision and she came back, she was so frightened. She didn't know what to say, because people asked her, what did you experience? She couldn't say, she was shy anyway. She would hardly speak. So they showed her the photo of Krishna and said, did you see this one? She said no. Actually she had seen Krishna. But why she said no? Because in visions, Sri Krishna which she saw was so beautiful, and compared to what she saw, the pictures of Sri Krishna which they show in the world today, or the artists paint Krishna's pictures, they are nothing compared to what she saw. It was so beautiful. Such a wonderful child which she had never seen before. So how can she say that she saw this one? Because this was nothing compared to that. So the artists of today, they may paint pictures of Krishna, but they don't see, they've not seen in visions how Krishna looks like. But she saw in visions the beautiful Krishna, And then later on, she dedicated herself with her mother. So now you can say 3 revolutionary acts happened at the beginning of this organization. First was visions. The second was the sisters and mothers were put in the front. So in a man-dominated society, when ladies are put in the front, there was a big opposition by the men. Why this? They did not want the women to come out in the open and, do all that, as Baba was telling them to say Om and then chant and then sing hymns and then praise Shiva or Krishna. The husbands didn't want all that. And then they made a pledge that they will lead a pure life. This agitated or irritated the husbands more, because they felt that their conjugal rights were being taken. They had a right over their wife's body and all that. But these mothers, they got that strength from Shiv Baba, and they said that they will lead a pure life. So these 3 revolutionary acts happened. For some, families and families surrendered. So about 400 brothers and sisters dedicated their lives, in which mainly there were more Kumaris, unmarried girls from the age of 10 till 20, 18, and mothers also, brothers also. And then for 14 years, from the year 1937 until 1950, they remained in total isolation from the world. From Hyderabad, they moved to Karachi. Karachi is a bigger city. Hyderabad is a smaller town. So for 400 people to live together, it was not so easy in one place. So in Karachi, they got many buildings, just like Bombay, big city, Bangalore, big city. Otherwise, like Mysore, smaller compared to Bangalore. And therefore, they lived in Hyderabad, Sindh, which was a smaller town. And they came to Karachi, which was a big city. And Baba bought or took on rent many big buildings to accommodate 400 people. And they lived in total isolation from the world for 14 years. And during those 14 years, a big change came in the world. Those who know history, they know how The Second World War took place from 1939 until 1945. For 6 years, the Second World War happened, in which thousands and hundreds of thousands of people were killed. In Europe, the communism came, and in India, we know how, after the Second World War, the partition came. India and Pakistan were divided in 1947. But then the 6 years of war brought a big transformation in the world. And then Japan and Germany surrendered to America, England, and ultimately how they surrendered when America threw a bomb, an atom bomb, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in the year 1945. And that made the king of Japan to surrender to America, because 2 big cities were totally devastated, destroyed. But that was only a beginning. And Shiv Baba told Brahma Baba that this is just a rehearsal. In India, there was so much of bloodshed because India was divided into Pakistan and Bharat. Pakistan was created because of, on the basis of religion. But then, how the people suffered? There was bloodshed everywhere. India was secular, but that country became Islamic, and the result was the Hindus there had to flee to come to India, otherwise they were being killed there. The Muslims here had to flee to go there, otherwise they were being killed here by the Hindus. So this became like a big civil war at that time. It was a very, very tragic thing that our country had to be divided at that time. But these sisters and brothers who were in Karachi were in total isolation. They were not at all affected. Of course, many fanatics would come, fundamentalists would come, and they would ask, who are you? Are you Hindus or are you Muslims? But these sisters, they had so much spiritual power in them. They used to say, we are servers of humanity. Server of humanity means serving humanity is their religion, because Hindu, Muslim is all physical religion. To serve humanity is the true spiritual religion. And peace is our religion, because we are souls. So anybody who would come, they would feel the sanctity, the purity, the power, the meditation, the atmosphere in front, with these sisters. And then the government also was very, very helpful. They actually protected this organization. And they used to say, you must please remain here, don't go back, don't go to India, be here. Then because of your purity, Pak means purity. So because of your purity, this land can become a pure land, because the name is there. Pakistan means the pure land. That's what it literally means. Pak means pure. So you continue to stay here. But Shiv Baba gave the directions that you will have to go to Bharat, because Bharat will become the world's lighthouse. Bharat is a spiritual country. Bharat, Bha means light, and Rat means filled with. So Bharat is the land which is filled with light. Bharat is the land where the world's sovereigns had 2 crowns, the crown of light and the crown of might. So Bharat is going to guide the whole world, Shiv Baba used to say. But then Baba also gave instruction, Shiv Baba, that Baba will let you know when to go to Bharat. So they continued to stay there in Karachi until India became a republic in 1950, on 26th of January. And then Shiv Baba said, now go to a mountain top, because they were living in Karachi, which is near the sea. And Shiv Baba gave them instructions to go to a mountain top. So Mount Abu is very close to Karachi because we are here on the western coast. When you go to Mount Abu and you go to Peace Park, from the left side you will see many mountains. This is the Aravali range, Arbudachal range of mountains between the Himalayas and the Nilgiris. So this is in between. The highest peak is 6,000 feet above sea level, and Mount Abu is 4,000 feet when you go up. So Baba told them that you have to go on a mountain. And so this mountain, Mount Abu, was not very well known. Nobody knew Mount Abu. Of course, everybody knows Kashmir and Shimla, Mussoorie, Nainital, there are many hill stations. But Mount Abu is a small place. It's a village actually. And this is a tribal belt. Only tribal people, Adivasis, they lived here. But Baba told them that this place is going to become a very famous place, and people from all the world, all over the world, are going to come here, to this place. Actually, Mount Abu, during the Britishers' period, was a good summer resort for the Britishers as well as for the kings who lived around in Rajasthan. Because in Mount Abu there are many palaces. Alwar Palace, Sirohi Palace, Bikaner Palace, Bharatpur Palace, Jodhpur Palace, And the kings built palaces here like summer resorts. They used to come and spend 3 months here. The road up to Mount Abu, the cemented road or the concrete road, was actually built by the Britishers. The Britishers loved to live on mountains. But the kings who used to come here, they would come on elephants and horses and all that, They used to bring all the people, about 500 people used to come together on on horsebacks and elephants. And there's a place from where they used to come. And in Mount Abu there is a temple, the Delwara temple, built by the Jainis 1,000 years ago. That temple was built, and all the marble and the carvings is so wonderful. It's nowhere else in the world. Such beautiful carving on marble is shown there. So they brought all this marble from, around Abu, in Rajasthan, because Rajasthan means all stones and rocks. This land is very barren. It's like a desert area. But of course, there are rocks. Even these Mount Abu rocks, they are granite rocks. So strong they are. It's all stone-like. So they brought the marble from the bottom to Mount Abu on horsebacks and elephants. And that temple was built. So when the sisters came here, on God's directions, they saw that they came in May. On 5th May 1950 they reached here. They came by ship from Karachi to Okha. Okha is a harbour in Saurashtra. And from there they came by train to Abu Road and then came to Mount Abu. But they brought everything with them. The Sindhis who were in Sindh, they actually fled from Pakistan after partition. They could not bring anything, not even a needle, not even a penny, because they ran just to save their lives, to protect themselves. So they left all their riches, their wealth, everything in Sindh. But then these sisters were given permission by the government to bring everything. And they came to Mount Abu. So May, June was okay. But then when July started, there was so much rainfall here. So much rain. August month is called the month of disgust. Too much rain. Mount Abu is like an oasis in a desert. All around you will find desert. But Mount Abu very green. So in July, August, September, there was so much rain that the sisters said, "What is this, Baba? Where have you brought us?" And this being only a Adivasi area, a tribal area, and nothing happens here. What are we going to do here? But Shiv Baba would tell them, don't worry children, don't worry children. A day will come when Mount Abu will be well known in the whole world. And people from all over the world will come. From Mount Abu to Abu Road there will be a queue. So the sisters used to wonder, but God has said it. God would see the future and tell it. And then when November, December came, it was so cold, that many of them got sick because they were used to Karachi weather, which was warm, like Bombay weather is quite warm all year round. The weather doesn't change. Here every day the weather changes, 4 weathers in one day. In the Mount Abu, if you go morning, it's so cloudy, daytime little warm, evening so cold, night very cold, like that. But then Baba used to tell them, have patience, have patience. But then in 1950, they got a big bungalow here, a palace called Bharatpur Palace, which is now a hotel. So after independence, all the kings who lived in India, they were told to surrender to the government, and they were given some privy purses. So India became a democratic country. The kings had to surrender. They were sealing on land. They could not keep a lot of property too. So many of the kings, who had palaces in Mount Abu, they sold them, and they have all become hotels, or they are like schools, boarding schools. People from abroad also come and study here. There are many boarding schools around, and also many hostels. So that's what Mount Abu is. Hostels, hotels, and for tourists, that's all. There is no other industry in Mount Abu. Tourism is the main industry of Mount Abu. So later on in 1952, they got an invitation to visit their family members, because when their family members came to know that now the organization has come to India, so they invited them. And Baba said, now you have to go. And whatever you have experienced in these 14 years, all the tapasya you have done, you have to now share that with the world. So the first place they came to was Delhi. They were invited to Delhi. And they used to sit on the bank of the river Jamuna. And one of the sisters would, chant Om. People would be sitting around and they would be chanting Om. And those people sitting in the gathering, they would go into trance. So the same experience which the sisters had at the beginning when they came to Baba, now through the sisters, other people started getting the same experience. It was all God's magic. And then they liked the knowledge which the sisters started teaching, because their purity, their spiritual power was so attracting that they just got so much peace through these sisters. And then the sisters stayed there for 1 month in their families, gave them knowledge, and then they wanted to come back to Mount Abu. But the family members and others who took the benefit, they would say, how can you leave us and go? What will happen of us? Who will continue to give us this knowledge? Then Baba told them, okay, if they want to continue, then tell them to buy or rent a house so that you can open a center. And then you stay there and let everybody come to take this knowledge. So in this way, the first center opened in Delhi. And then there were more invitations from Bombay, from Bangalore also, from other places, and thereby, wherever the sisters went, they were able to share that experience with others, and more centers opened. And then from there, they used to come to Mount Abu. And gradually, Mount Abu also became a well-known place. Now in Mount Abu, there are so many different training schools. Training for CRP, for the army, for the air force, for the police, many boarding schools. It's no more the same what it was like in the year 1950. And as we have centers all over the world, people from 130 countries come to Mount Abu. And when people from here, they go to Mount Abu, it's like a fleet of cars and buses and, taxis and jeeps, because from here they go to Mount Abu. So whatever Baba had said, there will be a queue from Mount Abu to Abu Road, we can see that now. Because at that time, there was no thought how all this will happen. Then in India, centers started opening. They went on opening, we got so many invitations. Even in South India, so many centers opened, North India, East India, West India. Everywhere centers started opening, people started giving a lot of land, and they said, make houses. In this way, the centers grew and grew and grew. And then they used to come to Mount Abu. So now in Mount Abu, our main headquarters is Pandav Bhavan, which was actually called Pokhran House. Pokhran is a place in Rajasthan where the first atom bomb was experimented upon. Indira Gandhi did it, and then Vajpayee ji did it. You must have heard this word Pokhran. So the king of Pokhran district, he owned that Pokhran house. So we bought it from him, and that was then Shiv Baba named it Pandav Bhavan. So Pandav Bhavan became the headquarters for this organization, and the sisters moved to different places and opened centers. And then more sisters like me, we joined. Like I came to in this organization in the year 1959. That was nearly 50 years ago. And I was a student at that time, studying in school. I came with my mother, and the first time I saw Brahma Baba, he came to Bombay. I saw Baba, I felt that he is my real father. Because I lost my father when I was very little, just 3 days old. He died in a motorcycle accident. So I never saw my father. But when I saw Baba, I felt, yes, he is my father, because Baba said, come child, come daughter. So when Baba said, daughter, child, I felt my father is calling me. And when I was just born, my mother got a vision of Brahma Baba. She saw Brahma Baba in a vision, because after 3 days my father died. So that thing was there, that she's born and father died. So there was so much sorrow. But then she got a vision, and in that vision Baba appeared, and he told her, I am her father, I will look after her, give her to me. And she was like a dream, she's like semi-trance state. And she picked me up and gave it to him. She saw Baba in the form of light, like an angel appearing in front of her. And she gave me to him. He said, I am her father, I will look after her. But afterwards when she got up, of course I was very much there, nobody took me away. But she got that vision. And then when I was about 7 or 8 years old, she came in contact with this organization. And when Baba came to Bombay, she took me to Baba, and when I saw Baba, I felt I found my father. So this was my beginning story. And then I continued studying, I continued coming to the center. I finished my graduation from Bombay University in '69. I did my Bachelor of Science. And then after I dedicated myself. Because whenever Baba used to see me, he would always say that, child, you have to serve the world. You have to serve the world. You have to give God's message to the whole world. So I used to wonder, how am I going to give God's message to the world? I mean, what have I to do for that? But then my family members, my uncles and cousins are many. So they would tell me, you must become a doctor. You must go for medical line, medicine. And I was very reluctant. I didn't want to go for medicine. I want to really become a teacher. I love to teach. So I told my family members, I don't want to become a doctor. So I wrote a letter to Baba. This was in 1967, when I was doing my inter-science. And then I asked Baba, Baba, what should I do? Baba replied to me. He used to write letters. He used to give advice. And Baba told me, child, you have to become a spiritual doctor and serve the world. These were Baba's words. And therefore I can see whatever Baba said is now coming true, and how I'm able to serve the world. Because as you were told, I've been to over 60 countries. We have centers in 130 countries. I've been only to 60 yet. In all the 5 continents, and people from abroad also come here. We have centers in those countries. And when they come here, I usually translate for them and give them classes and lectures. So, like, I feel the whole world is here. And when I started living in Madhuban, how Baba told me that the world will come here and you have to serve the world, even from here. So I used to wonder how, but now I know how. Because of this organization, even in the United Nations, we are an NGO, non-governmental organization. Everybody in UN also knows us. We have an office in the UN office itself, Brahma Kumaris. And we are also, in the UNICEF, the ECOSOC, also all these different departments of United Nations, we have a membership. So how we are able to serve the world here? And then in 1969, that was nearly 39 years ago, Pita Shri Brahma Baba left the body at the age of 93. The whole day passed off very peacefully. In the evening, Dadi Prakash Maniji went to Baba. Actually, she did not live in Madhuban, she lived in Bombay. But then, she was actually in Mount Abu during those days. And in the morning, she went to Baba. And how Baba took her around the whole Pandav Bhavan and showed her everything, where all the stock was kept, everything was kept. And as if Baba was handing over everything to her that day, without telling her anything. Then in the evening, after the evening class from 7:30 to 8:30, after that, in the history hall of Pandav Bhavan, Baba gave a class. And as he got up, he went to the door and he stood at the door and again moved in, bowed before the children and spoke 3 words, which were Baba's last words. Those 3 words were, children, may you always be bodiless, egoless and viceless. May you always be bodiless, egoless, viceless. And then Baba said, okay, Baba takes leave. Actually, Baba never said Baba takes leave. Of course, he used to say this, be bodiless, egoless, viceless. But never would he say Baba takes leave. He would always say good night, namaste, or good morning, Om Shanti. But okay, goodbye, like Baba would never say that. But then he said goodbye, Baba takes leave, and he went to his room. And it was about 8:45 at night. He was sitting on his bed in his room, which is now Baba's room in Pandav Bhavan. And on his bed, the same bed is still in Pandav Bhavan in Baba's room. He was sitting on his bed and maybe he got some chest pain, we don't know. But then he was sitting on his bed and became totally bodiless, very, very detached from the body. And Dadi ji had a thought, Dadi Prakash Mani, she had a thought, let me go and meet Baba. And when she went, she saw Baba sitting on his bed like I'm sitting with feet down. She said, Baba, Baba. And Baba's eyes were closed. And Baba was sitting like this. So she said, Baba, but Baba did not, pay attention. And he was just sitting in silence, her eyes closed. But she wanted to find out from Baba how his health was. Because in the morning he had some chest pain. But Baba, in the daytime he was okay. So at night she wanted to find out. So when she said Baba and Baba did not respond, she caught hold of Baba's hand and said Baba, Baba, and Baba opened his eyes. And that very moment, as he opened his eyes, he looked at her and she looked at him, hand in hand, and eyes looking at each other. We say drishti, giving drishti to each other. At that very moment, the soul left the body. Baba left the body. So, like we say, Baba willed all the powers to Dadi ji through the hand and through the eyes. So at that very moment, now Dadi felt something funny, because she said, these hands have become very loose, what happened? And the eyes shut, and again the head must have just, because the soul had left the body. So anyway, she made Baba to lie down on the bed, did not know what had happened. She called the doctor, and of course the doctor declared him dead. But then she got so much strength at that time. She did not allow anybody to cry. This was her speciality. She became so powerful because she got that power from Baba's hand and the drishti. And then phoned everybody and all came. Well, it's a long story. But then for 3 days the body was lying in state in the history hall, and on the 21st of January 1969, the body was cremated inside Pandav Bhavan, which is now the Tower of Peace, which is built in memory of Pitashri Brahma Baba. Mama left the body in 1965 at a very young age. She left her body at the age of 47. But Baba left the body at the age of 93. And then when Baba left the body, Dadi Hriday Mohini, she was actually a trance messenger. She is a trance messenger, and she used to go into trance and see the angelic form of Brahma Baba in the subtle regions. And that angelic form would tell her that this Brahma Baba, after attaining perfection, is going to become an angel Brahma. Brahma Devatai Namah. Brahma is Prajapita also, human being, but that a human being will turn into an angel, Farishta. So, when Baba left the body, she could see that how that physical form disappeared and like merged in the angelic form. So, when she asked Baba, Baba, how did you leave us and go away? Baba said, I haven't left you. I have just changed my costume and changed my room. Baba is with you and will continue to come and meet the children. Because Shiv Baba used to come in the body of Brahma Baba and speak. Again, that's a very wonderful experience which you can come to know more from the centers where you will go. And then after the body was cremated, Dadi Hriday Mohini went into trance and saw this, how Baba had merged into the angelic form, and then she felt how that angelic form came so close, and she lost her consciousness, and Shiv Baba and the perfect soul of Brahma Baba entered in her body while she was in a state of trance. And how they came in her body and started speaking what we call as Avyakt Murli, the Avyakt Vani. So we have two types of Vanis, two types of, Murlis, we say, the versions. One are those versions which Shiv Baba spoke to the body of Brahma Baba who was in the corporeal form. And the other type of versions are those which Shiv Baba and the angelic form of Brahma Baba, the perfect form of Brahma soul, they speak through the medium of Gulzar Dadi. And every year from October until March, we have people coming from all over the world to attend these programs. That's why we have the big hall here. You must have seen 20,000 people can sit in that hall. So from October to March, that hall is occupied all the time. And sometimes even 30,000. Though accommodation is not more than 12,000 here, but then from all over Pandav Bhavan and other places and all, so 20,000 people can sit in this hall. But sometimes even more, we have to put tents, because from all over the world people come. In 16 languages we have translation system, as you can see around, So when Bap Dada speaks in Hindi, then in different languages translation happens. Takes place. We have headphones. Now we are not able to provide headphones because This is a smaller place, but in the Diamond Hall, of course, we have all these settings done for headphones, and sometimes 20 languages, even 30 languages we have done. We have actually FM radios then for that too. So it's a wonderful thing to see how in all foreign languages also we have translations taking place. And we call this a one family, spiritual family, because God has broken the barriers of religion, caste, creed, color, sect and language, and we understand the language of silence, we understand the language of drishti, we understand the language of blessings, and how God is doing His work through the medium of our dadis. Dadi Prakash Mani left her body last year at the age of 85, and the body was cremated inside Shanti One, where you can see opposite the Diamond Hall, and we are going to name that memorial as Prakash Stambh. It's a lighthouse, that's what it means in English. And upstairs it is called Shanti Stambh, the Tower of Peace, and this is Tower of Light. Because Dadi's name was Prakash Mani, the jewel of light. This was a spiritual name given to her by Shiv Baba. She was really a wonderful jewel, and she administered this organization from 1969 until last year 2007 for 38 years. And how during that period our centers spread all over the world during her administration. And now we have Dadi Janki Ji. She is 92 years old. She came to Baba when she was 20 years and surrendered immediately. Now she is 92, but she has a wonderful stamina. Even at the age of 92, she is able to travel around the world. She just went to the United States, when she went to this country, that country, Kuwait and all. Wherever we have centers, we have programs. She goes to United Nations also often, to New York. We have many retreat places all over the world, and she travels a great deal. But at present she is in Mount Abu. I have requested her to come and meet you tomorrow. Let's see, if you are lucky, she will come down to meet all of you. Okay? So this is I requested, but she is busy also upstairs. On 22nd, I think she is leaving for London, because 24th of June is a special day for Mama. Mama left her body on 24th of June 1965. So special program takes place in London. Of course, Mount Abu it will be too. But then London people are calling Dadi to come to London. So let's see where she goes, whether she goes or not. But if she comes tomorrow, you'll be lucky to meet her. And even at this age, that power is so strong in her. She creates that powerful atmosphere wherever she goes. Dadi ji also used to do the same. But then she left her body last year. So but if you ask these Dadis, how are you running such a big organization? That they will say, we are not doing anything. God is doing His work. But He is like the backbone. Shiv Baba and Brahma Baba are like the backbone, which you can't see. But without the backbone, I couldn't be sitting like this for 2 hours. But then Shiv Baba and Brahma Baba are the backbone, giving the strength to the Dadis to do this work, and how the organization is growing and growing. Every year, every day, or every week must be a new center opening, a new Gita Pathshala opening, new souls coming to Baba and taking this knowledge. And here in April, May, June, we have hundreds of people like you coming to study Raj Yoga. So in this way, the whole year we have programs going on in Mount Abu as well as in Shantivan. That is why Dadi told you yesterday that you are very fortunate indeed to have come here, because so many want to come and they are not able to for some reason, or they don't get ticket, or we have stopped them because the number has increased. We don't want to be too much because we have to accommodate in this hall. So, but you have reached, and therefore you are very, very fortunate Tomorrow also there will be many classes, and you will be told more about the spiritual study which we are studying in this organization. So now I end here, and to tell you the good news that at 7 o'clock, one of our senior brothers, Brother Nirvair, is going to come to meet all of you. 7 to 8, he will share his experiences, and then from 9 to 10, Brother Karuna, who came on the first day, also one of our senior brothers, he will share his experiences. So it will be a wonderful sharing, because many say, is it only sisters giving lectures? We say, no, even brothers give. But then sisters are given a priority, they are in the front to give the spiritual teachings. So we end now, and a few minutes of silence, and then exactly at 7, Brother Nirvair will come. So just 2 minutes of silence. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. सब सुख